Hello everybody, welcome back to our virtual classroom and another lesson in our trades training video series. I'm Joe Carswell and this session is all about ladders and their safety and use. This does not substitute for your OSHA 10 training. I'm not an OSHA trainer, but I want to introduce to you a couple of different types and some features on ladders, so let's get right into it. We're going to cover two different types of ladders in this session. One is going to be a self-supporting ladder. That's going to be our step ladders. And then we're going to have a non-self-supporting ladder. This one needs to be leaned up against something. There's different types of materials ladders are made of. Very common materials are wood, fiberglass, and metal or aluminum. Wood ladders, that's the first material. These are becoming less common all the time. You'd be hard pressed to find a wood ladder on a job site. They don't hold up well in the weather. They're going to loosen up over time, and they tend to be very heavy. A fiberglass ladder is also very heavy, but it's very durable and it does not conduct electricity. Your aluminum ladders are going to be your lightweight ones, cannot be used around electricity or electrical hazards, but they are also very weather resistant. The other thing about ladders to talk about is their duty rating. They are made to hold a certain amount of weight. That weight's going to be you, your gear, and all of your tools, whatever's on that ladder at any moment. As you can see here, our duty ratings, they go from a type 3 to a type 2 to a 1 to a 1A or a 1AA. So remember this, a type 1 is going to be first class, right? 1 is first class. A type 3 is a homeowner ladder. That is one that really should not be used on any job site. It only is rated for 200 pounds and most people plus any tools are going to overload that ladder. Anything from a type 2 on up is good for use on the job site. The thing is that the more heavy duty the ladder, the more duty it's going to give you over time, so it will hold up well over time. The other thing is that with the extra duty or extra load rating on those ladders, they tend to be heavier. So you want to find one that works for you for a day-to-day use that will serve for whatever job you're doing. So this might be the most dangerous tool on the job site, is this ladder. It has a lot of signs, warnings, even built into, printed on this ladder. They're there for you to read and notice and pay a lot of attention to. There's a lot of specific information on there, and if you have some time, it would not be a bad idea to refresh using the ladder itself. Broken and damaged ladders cannot be used. As you can see in these photographs in this presentation, if there is any part of that ladder that is missing, fractured, or even bent, this ladder is sure to fail and would be your life at risk to use it. So any ladder that is broken needs to either be repaired or destroyed and replaced. Let's go into the setup of a ladder for safety, and that's going to start with its base. Like anything, you have to have a good foundation. A ladder needs to be sturdy at the floor where it contacts the ground. As you can see here in the presentation, there's 3 different styles of ladders here, and each one of them needs to have a good solid footprint where the feet meet the ground. And with a step ladder, we're going to talk about that a little more, how you need to verify the footprint of that ladder before you actually climb it. Let me demonstrate for you this idea of stability of a step ladder. So here we have a step ladder. This is my 6-foot ladder, and I've got 1 foot on it, not a lot of weight on it. Now, if I try to push it forward or backwards, this ladder will not tilt. I can literally, with 1 finger, get it to move side to side. So what that tells me is the stability of this ladder is only in a front to back axis. The side to side is always very unstable. That has to do with the width of the ladder and just the way it's built. This is an important concept to keep in mind when using your ladder. Anything that you do that is reaching or moving side to side is always going to be unstable. Anything that you do leaning into the ladder front to back is always your best option. So there's a phrase in ladder safety called 3 points of contact. That's going to mean that at all times when we're climbing or descending the ladder, we need to either have 2 feet and 1 hand or 2 hands and 1 foot on the ladder at any moment. And I can quickly demonstrate that. I've got 2 hands contacting my ladder. Now I have 1 foot. As I have 1 foot on, I can then move 1 hand up. And then when that hand makes contact, then I can move a foot. So it's always 3 points of contact when we're talking about this idea of climbing or coming down a ladder. Once we're where we need to be in height on that ladder, we can start working. The problem is, this is the point or the moment where we could start to abuse this ladder and do risky things. Overreaching is one of the most common mistakes to make on a ladder. As you can see, this gentleman in the presentation is trying to save a few moments, and he is reaching over with a nail gun, no less, to make a fastener, to put a fastener in. He's really out of reach on that ladder. He's only holding on with one foot and one hand, and he's using his other leg for balance. This is a very unstable situation, and if he was to fall in this moment, it would be a world of hurt for him and would definitely end his workday, let's put it that way. The right way to do this would be to come down off the ladder, spend a few moments to reposition that ladder, to be in a good place, to actually get closer to the work, and in my opinion, he could do a much better job to take those few moments to do that. It never pays off to take these kind of risks. You don't save any time in the day if you really stop and think about it. It almost boils down to laziness. When we're using a ladder, everything that looks like a step is not necessarily one. So if you see this, the color coding on this presentation, you've got green steps, you've got a yellow step, you've got red steps. The red steps are not steps. They are built and manufactured like every other rung or step on a ladder, but we are not legally allowed to use these. I have a 6-foot ladder here and I have a 4-foot ladder here. If we look at this diagram, that top step is yellow. Let's measure each one and see how much rise we actually get off the floor. So this is my 6-foot ladder, and I'm going to get to this step less than 4 feet. I'm at 47 inches. If I measure the 4-foot ladder, my last legal step is this one here. So I only get 2 feet out of this ladder. So keep in mind, just because you have a 6-foot ladder does not mean you can reach 6 feet off the ground with your feet. Here we see these quote unquote fake steps being used. This is not a step, the one on the yellow ladder, and the one on the right, that's someone standing on the very top cap of the ladder. These are big no-nos, and this turns this into a circus act that you're surely to fail at. Let me demonstrate this a little better. If this is my ladder that I'm using and I'm on that ladder, everything above the step that I'm standing on becomes a brace for my body. This is where all of my stability comes from. So without that, without this extra height, I can fall off the front of the ladder. Everything becomes very wobbly and unstable. So you need to be locked in with the ladder with that extra height. These are not steps. This is just brace territory here. Let's go over some parts of a step ladder. So I talked about this. This is not to stand on. It's the top cap. We've got the front side rails. These are going to hold our steps in place and provide rigidity for this ladder. We've got the rear side rails. And it's important to mention that these braces back here that hold the side rails apart are not steps. These cannot handle the weight of your feet or your body. And we are often tempted to use that. A couple other bad habits with ladders go like this. I see a lot of people thinking that you can straddle a ladder like this. And this feels very stable, but once again, we're putting it in that side-to-side instability. We're using the side of the ladder that cannot hold our weight. So this is a bad place to be. We're also using the top cap, which is illegal. The other thing that I see people do that is a real no-no is this idea of coming down the ladder forwards or even using it in a forwards position. So this is putting us not using the ladder to support ourselves. We don't have our bracing, and it's putting the ladder in a very unstable position as well. So those two things should be avoided, as well as staying off of these two steps. The spreaders are a feature on a ladder. Let me show you on this ladder, that are going to open and close to allow this ladder to fold up for transport. So they're hinged, and as I push that ladder out, we want to make sure that they lock down. And it should not require any tools. You should be able to do it with your hands. These need to be working, and they need to be fully extended. You need that full base and the footprint maxed out to get the stability out of this ladder. So then we have our steps. These are manufactured as steps. Remember, this top one looks like a step. It's clearly marked that it is not. We also have our safety shoes. So as you can see here, these are non-slip feet on this ladder. They need to all be in place. So when you're checking for your parts to make sure they're all there and working, make sure that you have all 4 feet. These are made for smooth surfaces and they grip well on that. Our next ladder type is an extension ladder. This is a whole different animal than our step ladders. An extension ladder requires a building or a solid surface to lean up against. So number one, we have to choose a stable place to prop this ladder up to. It also needs a nice base, a very solid base. Let's go over the parts. You're going to have your fly section. This is the part of an extension ladder that allows it to be adjustable. It's going to slide within your base section. Your base section is going to be the part that contacts the ground, and these two are going to slide very easily. They both have rails very similar to our step ladders. They're side rails. The side rails are going to hold the rungs. These steps on a step ladder are different from the rungs. Rungs are sort of round, kind of oval shaped. This is to accept your foot or your hand as you climb or descend that ladder. And you have special locks on, they're called rung locks. Some people call them dogs, but these are special parts that are going to lock the base section to the fly section so that it is no longer adjustable, so that then you can use it to climb. There's a halyard on an extension ladder. This is a simple rope that allows you to extend or retract the ladder by yourself while you're holding the ladder. And this type of ladder has feet on it like our step ladders, but they have pivots on them. They're special feet. We'll go over that next. The setup of an extension ladder is different than a step ladder. We need to lean it up against something, and we have to get the right angle on our lean. I'm going to use this step ladder to demonstrate that. There's a little math involved if you do it this way, but the bottom line is it should be a 4-to-1 ratio. So what that means is every foot or 12 inches that this ladder has of height to the top where it actually contacts the building, you want to slide that ladder out 3 inches. So that would mean that if you had a 10-foot rise where it met the building, you want that ladder 30 inches out, 3 inches for every 12 inches. So that would put you at a 4-to-1 ratio. That angle, you could measure it if you want, but there's an easier way to do it. This is going to be the easy way to do this. This gentleman is using his body to set that angle, and this gets pretty close with no measuring tools. So how you would do this is you're going to stand in front of the ladder with your toes touching the feet of the ladder. This is an extension ladder, remember. We're just using this for demo. And I'm going to put my hand straight out, and I should be able to touch, just touch the side rails. This is going to set my angle at that 4-to-1 ratio. What that angle is going to do is keep that ladder stable. It's going to, when you weight that ladder, make sure that the legs don't slip out from under it, and it's going to give you the most comfortable feel on that ladder possible. The rung locks we mentioned before need to be secured. These are special mechanisms, and they need to be working freely, and both, there's one on either side of the side rails. You need to make sure before you climb that ladder that they are locked in place. So you're going to get it to the height or extend it to the height that you want, and then you go a little past it, you're going to come back and make sure that those locks are in place. When we're talking about the setup of an extension ladder, we go back to this idea of the footprint of it and the stability of it, and this starts at the ground. As you can see here in this photograph, this is a terrible idea. You have short blocks stacked under this on loose soil. This is an accident waiting to happen, and generally this is going to fail when you're at the highest point on the ladder. So that is a bad setup. The better setup would be to excavate on the high side to lower that foot down to where it makes solid contact with the ground. They do make some extensions for ladders. Get the one for the ladder that would attach to this side. It has to be made for that ladder to allow that leg to extend to make a solid contact with the ground. These are special feet that are on an extension ladder. Here's a close-up of them on the presentation. These have a swivel feature to them, so you have two choices with these feet. You can have the anti-skid foot that's very similar to our step ladder, or you can swivel them out if you have soft ground like that earth we were looking at before. This is going to spike that foot into the ground. It's going to make a nice solid bite there, and it's going to keep that ladder from sliding out. This is ideal. Don't try to use the anti-skid foot on a soft ground. Another rule to keep in mind is extending this ladder beyond the height that you need it to reach. And if you're trying to access a roof or an upper platform, you need 36 inches of ladder extended up there. This is going to allow you to have something to hold on to while you're stepping off of the ladder. If you've ever tried to get onto a roof when this was not the case, it's really scary, and it's even more scary when you're trying to come down. So this rule is for a reason, and so keep in mind that 3-foot extension. Single ladders are a variation on an extension ladder that basically work the same way. They just don't have all the moving parts. What I would mention to you is if you're using a single ladder, please don't be tempted to use a short one in a situation where you needed it longer. That's only going to mean that you're going to try to overreach on that ladder, and we've talked about the dangers of that. This is a quick review of ladders. So we have 2 agencies that are setting all these rules for us about ladder safety and use. That's going to be ANSI and OSHA. Please inspect your ladders for missing or broken parts and take those out of service if you find anything wrong with those ladders. Make sure that you use a ladder that's rated, that has a duty rating that matches the load that you're placing on that ladder. That's you, all of your equipment, and materials. Ladders need a secure and level base for safe use. Remember, your foundation is your most important thing, especially with ladders. Use 3 points of contact when you're climbing or coming down from a ladder. Avoid the top rungs or steps. These are not for standing, and we are always tempted to do that. Make sure that the rung locks or the spreaders are locked before using that ladder. The anti-skid shoes are on ladders for hard surfaces. The spurs or spikes are there for soft ground. If you're trying to access a roof or upper platform, make sure that your extension ladder is 36 inches beyond the point where it actually contacts the building. This is a list of terms used in this presentation, and as always, I like to stress this idea of learning the language of building and using it on the job site, especially when we're talking about things like ladders and safety. So I hope you've learned something about our most dangerous tool on the job site, the ladder. So thanks for watching. That's a wrap. This video is a production of Trade Skills U, all rights reserved.